All right, guys, we are back with our third segment of the night. Maple Leafs hire Craig Berube as their next head coach. Before we talk about that, though, I would like to remind you guys, if you want to support, I clicked the wrong button there. If you guys would like to support the stream, gsmcpodcast.net in any way, you have the tips and donations link right up there at gsmcpodcast.net, as I had a little bit of technical difficulties right there, but it's all good. gsmcpodcast.net if you guys have any questions, anything you want me to read out loud live on air, or if you just want to support us. It means a lot to us. We really appreciate it. Craig Berube, however, is named as the next head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Toronto Maple Leafs, we talk about them a lot, but you have to talk about them a lot. They have the biggest fan base in the NHL. They're the Dallas Cowboys of the NHL, really. That's always my comparison. They haven't won since 1967. The Cowboys haven't won since the 80s. Very similar teams they are. That's my little Cowboy slander right there for Andrew Tate, if he's watching. Our boss here at GSMC, of course, is a Dallas Cowboys fan, so I gotta throw a little shade being a Steelers fan myself. So if he's watching, there it was. But Craig Berube for the Toronto Maple Leafs, that's a big hire. Craig Berube has had success in his coaching career at one stop specifically. It was the St. Louis Blues. He was the AHL coach for the St. Louis Blues, and then in Chicago, the Chicago Wolves was their AHL team at the time. Then he became an assistant head coach for the Blues in 2017. 2018, when they fired their old head coach, Mike Yao, he became the interim head coach for the rest of the season. And from there, at the time that he picked up the St. Louis Blues in 2018 to 2019, that season, they were dead last in the NHL. Granted, they had like 7 games in hand on anybody else, but they were dead last in the NHL. The team was in turmoil. They were fighting a lot. I believe that there was a video that came out during that time of a fight that happened in practice in a morning skate. So the team was in absolute turmoil, but the St. Louis Blues were able to do the absolute impossible and go 30-10-5 with a franchise record 11-game winning streak to earn the 3rd seed in the Central Division to make it to the playoffs, and then they advanced all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. And in the Stanley Cup Final, they were able to beat the Boston Bruins in a Game 7 with a 4-1 win, and that's the story of Craig Berube in St. Louis. It's that one season really for him. He was a finalist for the Jack Adams that year. I believe John Cooper was the one that went on to win that Jack Adams Award. And after a 3-year extension in 2022, it was disappointing season this year in 2023-2024 for the St. Louis Blues. They were expected to contend, but they were not able to. He was fired on December 12th, 2023 from the St. Louis Blues. And since then, now he's taken over to be the head coach of the Toronto Maple Leafs. What does Craig Berube bring to the table? Well, you have a winning culture with Craig Berube. He's a Stanley Cup champion. He was a fantastic forward for the. He was a fantastic forward for a bunch of teams. He played all around the Metro Division. That is currently the Metro Division. Of course, it wasn't then. He played for the Flyers, the Maple Leafs, the Flames, the Capitals, and the Islanders. He was an undrafted player. He played for 18 years, and he's coached since 2004. Really. He took up coaching under the Philadelphia Flyers, who was his first destination as a player as well. Craig Berube, all of this to say, he is a seasoned veteran in the National Hockey League. He's been a part of the NHL in some way, shape, or form since 1986. That is, let's do some quick math here, 38 years. So he has been a mainstay of the National Hockey League, and he's a great coach too. You don't win a Stanley Cup without being an amazing coach. Show me one that's done it, and I'll give that one up. But what can he do for this Toronto Maple Leafs team that seem kind of in turmoil, seem like they don't really have a direction, don't really know what they're doing? Well, first off, I think he's going to get he's going to get what he needs from John Tavares. I think that's the first one that you're going to look to turn it around. When Craig Berube came in 2019 for the St. Louis Blues, he looked immediately upon Alexander Pietrangelo to turn the ship around. That was the veteran defenseman. The Toronto Maple Leafs equivalents of that might be Morgan Rielly. However, I don't think Morgan Rielly is going to be able to turn the team around as much as John Tavares can. When it comes to postseason play, at least, this team has failed in the postseason. That's why Sheldon Keefe got fired. We talked about that when Sheldon Keefe got fired. Why he did, it was because they didn't get it done in the postseason. So, Craig Berube knows what he needs to do. He knows the job at hand. He knows the task at hand. He knows what he needs to do, and he knows that he needs to win in the postseason. How does he do that with this core, with this Toronto Maple Leafs core? You need production out of John Tavares. They didn't get it. Austin Matthews needs to be a better goal scorer in the playoffs. He wasn't this year. The biggest question mark that the Toronto Maple Leafs have on their team right now is Mitch Marner. Where does he go? Does he go anywhere? It's been reported that he isn't very happy in Toronto. He wants to change of scenery. He wants to be on a team where he can kind of be a number one option. What does that look like? Mitch Marner has one more year, $11 million. They could definitely use that $11 million because you have RFAs in Holmberg, Dewar, and Gregor. Dewar, Gregor, and Nick Robertson are all RFAs. That means that they are still under team control, but you do need to re-sign them. I believe you have to allocate $5-6 million to those three guys. You have Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi, who are UFAs. I think those guys have to walk. On the team, on defense, you have Timothy Liljegren, who's an RFA. Maybe $1 million around that for him. He might get a two-way deal. Timothy Liljegren hasn't really panned out as much as we expected. Coming out of that 2016 draft class, I believe he was in the 2016, maybe 2017 draft class. But he hasn't panned out as much as they were expecting him to or hoping him to. You have UFA defensemen. This is the big one. You have Ilya Bushkin, who I think you might let walk. He has not proved to be a good playoff defenseman whatsoever. Joel Edmondson, UFA. I think you saw good production out of him, but do you have enough money really to use? You have $6 million, I'm saying, allocate to the RFAs. Maybe $7 million allocate to RFAs. You currently have an $18.5 million cap space. That leaves you $11 million for TJ Brody, Joel Edmondson, I won't say Timothy Liljegren. Maybe Ilya Samsonov if they want to keep him. That means TJ Brody is walking, probably. Joel Edmondson is probably walking. That leaves you with 4 defensemen on your team. Morgan Rielly, Jake McCabe, Simon Benoit, Connor Timmins. You need 2 free and I'll get to a point here. 2 free agent defensemen who are not cheap. You need a goalie if you're not going to re-sign Ilya Samsonov. That's not cheap. You're going to need to find forward depth somewhere, somehow. And you don't have money. You have only $18 million in cap space right now. That means you gotta move on from Mitch Marner, who's taking up $11 million of that cap space. If you move on from Mitch Marner, you have $29 million. That means $29 million, $23 million after you take the RFAs out. $23 million, that's $4 million for a goalie, $19 million. You have 2 veteran defensemen that you probably want to add to this core. That will be about $5 million each, $10 million. You're at $14 million, $5 million left for veteran forwards. And I think you can do that then. That's why they need to move on from Mitch Marner. I think it's a no-brainer, and I think that that's the number one question revolving the Leafs in this offseason. I'm very interested to see where he goes. If he goes to kind of a rebuilding team ready to contend like the Devils, like the Senators, like the Blue Jackets, or if he goes to a team that is already contending. Maybe a Hurricanes can take him on. Maybe an LA Kings can take him on. It will be interesting to see what those teams do, what Mitch Marner wants to do, where he expects to go. He does have a no trade clause on him, so he has to waive it for a team. So he has to pick the team, basically. I can't wait to see how that saga unfolds, and I can't wait to tell you guys and give you guys my thoughts on it when it does happen. So that will take us into our third and penultimate break, where when we come back, we'll be talking a deep dive into this Edmonton Oilers and Vancouver Canucks series. I kind of hinted at what I'll be talking about with that earlier, It's a series that I am very excited to talk about. And with that being said, we'll be right back on GSMC Hockey Podcast.